$112 billion. That's the estimated annual cost when companies hire the wrong CEO.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that number. $112 billion in lost market value every year.
That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It hammers home why understanding what makes a great leader.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just some academic exercise. It's critical.
Definitely. And that's exactly why we're diving deep today. We want to unpack what really separates the best leaders from the rest.
So what are we drawing on?
We're looking mainly at the big study behind the CEO next door, Botello and Powell's work. They studied over 2,600 leaders.
Okay.
And we'll also bring in some related insights from GHS Smart's research and places like Harvard Business Review, just to round things out.
Got it. So think of this as your shortcut. We're boiling down a ton of research into the core stuff.
Exactly. The essential behaviors.
So whether you're aiming for leadership yourself, or you work with leaders, or maybe you're just curious about what makes top performers tick, we think you'll find some really practical takeaways here. Stuff you can actually use. No jargon overload.
Right. Our mission really is to pull out those key behaviors and mindsets. What do these exceptional leaders do differently? We want to give you a clear, concise picture based on these sources.
Okay, let's jump in now. What's the first big one?
The first transformative behavior that jumps out is decisiveness, making decisions effectively.
Right. I remember seeing that phrase from the book, speed and conviction over precision.
Exactly. And it's not about being careless or shooting from the hip. It's more nuanced.
How so?
Well, it's about having the confidence, often built on well-honed mental models, to act decisively even when you don't have, 100% of the information.
Okay, so mental models, like internal frameworks.
Pretty much. Developed through experience, they let these leaders quickly see patterns, cut through the noise, and make a good call with maybe, say, 80% of the data.
Interesting. But they're not doing this alone in a dark room.
Right. No, definitely not. The research really stresses including others, the idea of give a voice, not a vote.
Give a voice, not a vote. I like that.
Yeah, it means actively seeking out different perspectives, getting that input early.
But ultimately, someone has to make the call.
That's the key distinction. They gather the input, they value it, but they don't let it lead to paralysis by committee. They decide what's the goal and empower their team on the how.
That makes sense. Fosters ownership too, I bet.
It does, and it connects to another really important point they make. There is a cost to perfection.
Meaning, waiting too long can be worse than making a slightly imperfect decision sooner.
Precisely. You can get bogged down waiting for that last piece of data that might not even change the outcome. Decisive leaders know when enough is enough.
Because inaction has its own risks.
Absolutely. And, when things don't go perfectly, which happens, right?
Of course.
They treat it like a laboratory. It's not about blame, it's about learning. What can we refine? How do we adjust?
And taking ownership. I remember that powerful line. Most things that go wrong are not directly your fault, but they're always your responsibility.
Yes. That's such a crucial mindset shift. It's about accountability, not fault finding. And it links to being able to apologize effectively when needed, the art of the apology, and just moving forward.
So it's a mindset, but are there specific techniques mentioned?
Yeah, the sources point to a few practical tools like Chip and Dan Heath's 101-10 technique.
How does that work?
You basically consider the impact of a decision in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years. Gives you perspective.
Okay.
And Jess Smart talks about 3Ding, discuss, debate, and decide. A structured process to make sure you hear different views before locking in.
Useful frameworks.
Okay.
So for you listening, maybe pause and think. How do you make decisions? Could a bit more speed or maybe more structured input help?
Good question to ponder. Okay, shall we move to the second behavior?
Let's do it.
All right. This one is about engaging stakeholders for impact.
Stakeholders.
Yeah.
So anyone who has a vested interest, right?
Yeah.
Employees, customers, board members.
Exactly. And the core idea here is that leadership, especially at the CEO level, is fundamentally interdependent. The book says CEOs are almost entirely dependent on the actions of others for their success.
Right. You can't do it alone. It's a team sport.
Totally. And a key point here is the difference between engaging for impact versus just trying to get people to like you.
Ah, the nice CEO potential pitfall.
Exactly. Sometimes avoiding conflict, wanting everyone to be happy, can actually hold things back. Impact sometimes requires tough conversations or pushing people a bit.
So how do they achieve that alignment without just, being dictatorial.
Well, there's a great analogy. They use the conductor, Robert Spano.
Yep.
The CEO is like the conductor of an orchestra. They don't play every instrument,
Right.
but they set the vision, they keep everyone aligned, playing the same piece, bringing it all together. It's about alignment and buy-in.
I like that visual. And keeping the orchestra sharp. There's a phrase, something about dissatisfaction.
Yes, keeping stakeholders constructively dissatisfied.
Sounds a bit negative.
It's not meant to be. It's about fostering a healthy sense of we can always do better, a drive for progress, avoiding complacency while still being positive.
Okay, I get that. And communication must be huge here.
Constantly. CEOs need to be relentlessly communicating the strategy, translating it. As the book puts it, sell the people, not the concept.
Make it relatable about them.
Exactly. Explain the why. And remember the rule of sevens. People often need to hear things multiple times in different ways for it to really sink in.
7 times. Wow. Okay.
It emphasizes the need for repetition. And interestingly, this engagement is two-way. Stronger candidates often seek out opportunities to mentor others.
Not just get mentored, but be a mentor.
Right, because it gives them valuable perspective, helps them understand different parts of the organization, different challenges people face.
That makes a lot of sense. So again, for you listening, think about your interactions. Are they geared towards driving specific outcomes, achieving impact, or more about just keeping things smooth, maybe avoiding necessary friction?
A crucial distinction.
Okay, what's the third behavior?
The third one is reliability, just consistently delivering.
Ah, the safe pair of hands.
Exactly. The research quotes that directly. Boards love a safe pair of hands. And maybe even more striking, reliability consistently trumps exceptionalism.
Really? So steady performance beats occasional brilliance in the board's view.
Often, yes. They value predictability, trust, knowing you'll follow through. These leaders are described as organized, disciplined, thorough, conscientious.
Consistency is key then.
Absolutely. There's a warning in there, too. The moment you are inconsistent twice, there is a new pattern. People notice quickly.
Ouch. So where does this reliability come from?
Deep down, it stems from what they call radical personal accountability, holding yourself to the absolute highest standard. You earn the right, the moral authority, to hold others accountable by being rigorously accountable yourself first.
Walk the talk, essentially.
Very much so. There's a great example with Mary Berner at Reader's Digest.
What did she do?
She proactively sought 360-degree feedback from everyone, showed vulnerability, acted on the feedback, and built incredible credibility that way.
That takes courage.
It does, and it reflects another shift. As you rise, your focus has to move from your own individual achievements to enabling the collective achievement of your team.
Your success is their success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of that is creating a culture where it's okay to make small mistakes, destigmatizing them.
So people aren't afraid to flag issues early.
Right. Viewing slip-ups as learning moments. Everyone feels responsible for raising potential problems before they become big crises. That builds long-term reliability.
So back to the board perspective. They prefer the steady hand over the potentially brilliant but maybe erratic performer.
Generally, yes. Consistency and dependability carry enormous weight.
Makes sense. So for yourself, listening again, how reliable are you? Do you consistently follow through on commitments and goals?
It's a fundamental building block of trust.
Okay, the fourth and final key behavior.
Bold adaptation. The necessity of adapting boldly.
Adapt or perish, as H.G. Wells said.
Precisely. The research really highlights how critical it is to embrace the discomfort of the unknown, to be willing to change, even to let go of what made you successful before.
We've certainly seen companies fail dramatically because they didn't adapt, right? Kodak, Blockbuster.
Borders, yeah, the list goes on. Stark reminders that past success guarantees nothing. Knowing things isn't enough if you don't act on the need to change.
So the CEO's job isn't just managing the present, it's actively shaping the future.
Absolutely. It's turning that constant uncertainty into opportunity, proactively charting new paths, not just reacting when you're forced to.
And that probably feels uncomfortable.
It should feel uncomfortable sometimes. The research suggests that if you're always comfortable, you might not be pushing hard enough, learning fast enough. You have to welcome discomfort, even conflict sometimes, as drivers of progress.
That's counterintuitive for many people.
It can be. And maybe the toughest part is letting go.
Letting go of what?
Letting go of the strategies, the approaches, maybe even the beliefs that made you successful in the past. That's often the biggest barrier to adaptation, clinging to the old ways.
Because What worked before might be exactly what's holding you back now.
Bingo. That's a huge insight.
So another reflection point for everyone.
Yeah.
Where might you be resisting necessary change? Clinging to the familiar even when adaptation is needed.
It requires real honesty to answer that.
Okay, so those are the 4 core behaviors. Let's zoom out a bit. What about the broader picture, the career journey?
Well, fundamentally, the CEO is the strategist and the culture builder, setting direction, building the team, shaping the environment.
And it's usually a long road to get there.
Typically, yeah. The average time was around 24 years to reach the CEO spot in this study. And in boards, they're often thinking in terms of like a 10-year runway for a CEO.
So it pays to think long-term about your career.
Definitely. The sources suggest viewing your career not just as landing jobs, but as building a portfolio of experiences. Each role adds something different.
Skills perspectives.
Right. And leaning into roles that push you a bit, make you feel slightly outside your comfort zone. That seems to be where real growth happens.
Taking on challenges.
Yeah, sometimes big companies even use those tough assignments, the big messes nobody wants, specifically to develop future leaders. Taking the job no one else wants can be incredibly valuable.
That's interesting. What about setbacks? Do most leaders have smooth rides to the top?
Not usually, no. The data showed nearly half of CEOs experience a significant career blow-up at some point.
Wow, nearly half.
Yeah. But the critical thing wasn't the setback itself, it was how they handled it.
Ownership versus blame. Learning versus failure.
Exactly. Did they own it, learn from it, frame it as a growth opportunity, or did they blame others? See it purely as a failure? That response makes all the difference.
And visibility matters too, presumably. Getting noticed.
It does, but in the right way. It's not about aggressive self-promotion or that awful kissing up and kicking down behavior.
Right.
It's about building genuine relationships, demonstrating value to the organization, making sure the right people are aware of your contributions. And apparently, boards can be a bit wary of people who are always the runner-up but never quite make it.
Interesting. So alignment is key. Making sure your ideas fit the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Aligning your suggestions with the organization's goals, and importantly, your boss's goals. Your manager should be seen as a key ally.
And as you get more senior, that permanent public speaking mode.
Yeah, that phrase captures it. You're always representing the company. Your words and actions carry more weight, which ties into perception versus results.
You get hired on perception.
But fired on results. Initial impressions matter, but long-term success depends on delivering consistently. It's that blend. Fierce competence delivered with genuine warmth.
Competence and warmth. Both are needed.
Both. And communication becomes even more critical. Precise language, using quantifiable examples, telling memorable stories, finding that balance between I did this and we achieved this, brag about the team.
And if you do have a blow up in your past,
Address it honestly if it comes up. Lead with your strengths, but have a story ready about what you learned, how you grew from it, a redemption story.
makes sense. Taking control of the narrative.
Right. And generally setting the agenda, being clear about who you are, what you see as the opportunities and what you plan to do, but also being realistic about fit.
Fit is crucial.
Hugely. The sources emphasize only taking a role that truly aligns with your skills, strengths, and values. Because, as they say, the only thing worse than not getting the job is getting the wrong job.
So true. And even once you get the top job, the adaptation challenge continues.
Oh, yeah. It usually takes about 2 years, apparently, for both the CEO and the board to really know if it's the right fit. And a lot of CEOs struggle with adapting quickly enough in the role.
It reminds me of that Groucho Marx quote.
Which one?
Learn from the mistakes of others. You can't possibly live long enough to make them all yourself.
Huh. Exactly. There's a steep learning curve.
And those first few months are key.
Very key. That first 6 months is often a window where any issues you tackle are still seen as pre-existing. After that, they start becoming your issues.
Okay, pressure's on early.
And managing your time and focus becomes incredibly strategic. Saying yes to the right invitations, prioritizing relentlessly. Top CEOs spend a surprising amount of time thinking about the future, not just the present.
Because everything they do gets magnified.
Hugely. As a CEO, everything you do is amplified. Every word, every action ripples through the organization. Which brings us back to culture.
Which you said is hard to change, but high impact.
Incredibly high impact. CEOs who focus on culture early see massive returns, and they shape it in 3 main ways. Modeling the behaviors they want to see,
Leading by example.
how they allocate their own time and the company's resources,
What do they prioritize?
and who they hire, fire, and promote, Those decisions send powerful signals.
So it's about actions, not just posters on the wall.
Definitely. There's also this idea of stages in a leader's career.
Oh.
First, you're known for what you do, then for what you know your expertise. And ultimately, the highest level, you're known for WHOU. You are as a leader, your character, your values.
Interesting progression.
It ties into that Mark Twain quote, too. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Being willing to question your own assumptions.
Especially about people, I imagine. Talent management must be huge.
Paramount. First step. Clearly telling your team what needs to be achieved. The goals. But then assessing talent is critical. Bad hires or keeping underperformers in key roles is incredibly costly.
So you need to make tough calls.
Often, yes. The research suggests successful CEOs often make significant changes to their direct reports, maybe 40–60% within the first 18–24 months. It's about getting the right team on the field.
Wow, that's a high percentage.
It underscores the importance. And they say something like 90% of CEO leadership is behavior modification, balancing being a cheerleader with holding people accountable.
That sounds like a delicate balance.
It is. And how you enter the role, those initial actions, sets a lasting tone. One common mistake for new CEOs.
What's that?
Failing to manage the board relationship effectively.
Really? That important?
Absolutely. Successful CEOs often spend 10–20% of their time just on board relations. The board provides accountability, yes, but also support and guidance. The CEO drives success but needs the board aligned.
Understanding their role and responsibilities.
Exactly. And ultimately, the best leaders described are high-purpose, high-performance leaders, driven by a clear mission, strong values, focused on building great teams and doing right by customers, not just maximizing short-term shareholder returns.
A broader view of success.
A much broader, more sustainable view.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this all up, we hit on 4 really key behaviors from the research.
Right. Decisive action, speed, and conviction.
Engaging stakeholders, focusing on impact.
Consistent delivery, that crucial reliability.
And bold adaptation, embracing change, and letting go of the past.
Those are the big 4.
So for you listening right now, maybe just take a second. Which of those 4 really hits home for you? Where's your biggest opportunity for growth? Or what resonates most with your current situation?
Yeah, maybe just pick one area. What's one small thing you could start doing differently?
And here's maybe a final thought to chew on, building on all this.
Okay.
We talked about needing both decisive action and diverse perspectives. How do you balance those two? They seem kind of opposing, right?
Yeah.
How do you get the best of both in what you do?
That's a great tension to think about. Or another angle.
Go on.
Given how vital reliability is, what small, consistent habits could you build? Things that would boost trust and predictability in your work, your interactions.
Simple things often have a big impact there.
They really do.
Well, this has been fascinating. Obviously, there's way more detail in the source material.
Oh, absolutely. For anyone who wants to go deeper, definitely check out The CEO Next Door by Botello and Powell, and the other work by Jeff Smart and GHS Smart. Lots of rich insights there.